Right, okay, here we are. We're here back for the fourth of these drop-in sessions, third sort of formal debrief session. We're going to talk about the third event that we did. We're going to talk about the stricken classes, give a bit of info on what they're all about, how we brought them into the game, and a bit about sort of the differences in playing one compared to playing a bunker character. And then we'll have the normal Q&A general chat at the moment, and talk some more rubbish of some kind. Um, right, so yeah, the slides appear to be working properly. So first of all, we'll talk about the event three then, which was called Occupation. So it took place on 22nd June 2018, all that time ago, at the same site at Woolly Edge. Just a couple of pictures there. One of the highlights for me very early on is Adam bringing along his big engineers workshop and just brought a lot of fun and a lot of theme to the indoor part of the site, which was good. So what were we trying to achieve at event three, op three? So we were looking to get more iteration on the missions, sort of more going on, more interaction, not just fighting, just sort of really sort of drumming up the benefits of the QR codes, the phys reps, get the players doing more on the ground, sussing problems out, and just make them feel more like their characters, like engineers doing more engineering, medics doing more medicing, that kind of thing. So a lot of that. Opportunity for first major player victory. Have to say this wasn't a scripted thing. You know, it could have gone wrong at any point, and some things over the weekend did. But yeah, so first major player victory was achievable. And looking at some of the consequences of the players interacting with surface, so sort of getting back to the theme of the bunker people coming up onto the surface and sort of exploring and doing their own thing, but what kind of impact does that have on the environment and the people around them? And then dealing with the major internal threat, or not, as the case may be. So a bit about a story then. So we had some very focused goals for each of the classes. We were looking at the morality of wrongdoings for the right reasons, um, and some ownership, real choices that affect the ongoing story. So you can see there I've linked a couple of shots from the website, the specific elements. So you've got the military department and the medical department showing the different objectives. So they've all got the general objective to deal with the hive, but then each of the departments had their own sort of sub-objective. Soldiers obviously just to take care of the hive and protect the colleagues and bunker assets, aid the tribes where possible. And then medical, for instance, was this plague had been identified, and they were being asked to look into that and resolve it if possible. And the engineers had theirs, which was to do with a internal terrorist plot. So the main hooks was weighted department-specific plots, as I've just said, and objectives for them to lead on and bring everyone along. So we set it up so they were given these sort of things to look into, and it were up to them to pursue that and put the mission together, etc. And then obviously that form the team around them. So the engineering problem, that the engineers sort of figured out what they needed to do when they need to do it, and then they pull the team around them to push that forward. And each of the departments sort of did that themselves, and just giving more for the players to decide, like all the choice sort of getting into the players' hands. And then run-ins with hostile factions from within the bunkers, sort of building up from the first couple of events where we had the issues with the rogue council member, and just showing that there's other problems in the bunker. It's not all sort of utopian and settled, far from it. And the players are sort of stuck right in the middle of all that. So some of the greats from the event. So yeah, we got to watch the engineers scratch build a Faraday cage, which was pretty insane. They just found whatever they could from around the site and built scratch built a Faraday cage out of it. It was awesome. It's not scripted, not expected or anything like that, but it just shows what the players can come up with when they're given the freedom to do it. Engineer's mission that ended in defeat and that had severe consequences to the story, and players rallied round to own the problem. So that mission failure in itself has sort of cascaded through the events since, and had quite a a big effect on the bunker, and it's not necessarily turned out to be a negative effect, because what it's done, it's forced people up onto the surface, because parts of the bunker are unusable, and that in itself has created opportunities for integrating with the tribes and all that sort of thing. So it's just to show that we don't count on players winning everything to run the plot along. It will follow no matter what happens. So yeah, it's one of the things we really try to do differently. Yeah, and I think we discovered channels. To be honest, it were either event 3 or 4, but it could have been 4. But between one of the two, we discovered channels for the guns, and this was massive. Because what this means is the guns are now like a television remote control, in that they've got all these channels programmed into them. One of those channels is the player's own.
Duffy, can you mute yourself, mate? We're getting feedback.
Yep, so one of the channels is the player's own gun settings for their particular gun, so they keep that gun the whole event. Then the rest of the channels are all the NPC settings. So all we do now is literally point a TV remote at the gun, click a number, and it sets that up. So whereas before it would take 5 minutes feeding the gun through the PC and to program a player or program a monster, we are now in a situation where it's literally is, you click a button and it's done. And that's completely changed the dynamics of the game and mission setups and things like that. And we can really get things done fast now. With so little downtime. The final fight to take down the Hive Apollo leader was, a real touch and go mission with a lot going on. Not just not just blind shooting and sort of all the normal stuff that we've started to establish, like flanking, setting up for good firing positions, all that. There were a lot of technical stuff going on as well that the engineers were doing, and then obviously being supported by the medics, etc. It was just like a really interesting fight, and again, it was on the knife's edge in terms of it succeeding. And then, as I mentioned, the players decided on who goes on what missions, so the Krats sort of made that process their own, took over it, and really sort of made sure it happened and supported everybody else by sorting out supplies for the missions and jigging people apart when they couldn't make certain missions, things like that, and just really sort of the players starting to take ownership more of the whole weekend. So they're not so great. So on this one, very little, to be honest. It was no event's ever seamless, but I think this one went really, really well. And it's a really good. Most of the classes got really well. So all the classes had good lump of things to do, very interesting. Again, role play with clans, all that sort of thing, really good, and just generally an all-round good event. Don't know if any of the other GMs want to add anything to that.
It was so this was still before I joined the GM team, so this was my second event as a player, and yeah, I think the only takeaway from this event was that the existing players learned that they needed to you couldn't do everything yourself in a both a positive and a negative way. Like, the game doesn't let you. So for the longer running players, it was an experience to learn to delegate to newer players who maybe are less experienced, but when all you need to do is someone to go and solder some bits or hold some wires or review some research documentation, I think the more experienced players certainly learn to push that information out by the end of this event.
Cool. Anybody else?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend this event, so I've got not much to add.
Right, fair dues. Okay. So I've spoke about most of this, but again, I like to go through what players did actually achieve over the weekend. So, discovered an inadvertent bunker course plagued and cured it. They attempted to stop a terrorist attack on bunker facilities, which was a terrorist attack from people within the bunker. Unfortunately, that failed, as we talked about. Military manoeuvres to keep... Sorry, that's wrong. It's up with bunker fortitude. That was just military manoeuvres to keep the Hive on their toes, sorry. And then learnt much more about stricken clans, and then defeated the Hive Lord Apollo. So yeah, another really sort of busy event with lots going on. Okay.
I was going to say, was this the event with the trying to stop the ventilation shafts being destroyed?
It was, yes.
Yeah, I think that, like me and Dave were saying at the time, it was one of the best missions we went on, because it was just a group of, it was just one group of people with a med kit on top and us at the bottom. Was that right?
No, that was the previous event.
Was it? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that was the previous
this
one. Yeah, no, this one was the bomb. This one was the bomb where a certain Decker earned his engineer name. Decker, aka Clipper.
Just clip the wire.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, it was fun watching that happen, because I didn't go on that engineering mission. We were doing something else, I think because I'd gone on the engineering mission at the previous event. I let the other guys run with this one.
Yeah, I think I monstered this one.
Yeah, they were holding the one where they were sort of like, it was set up in a dish on quite a high point in the site. So the soldiers were all set up sort of on the high ground.
That was the first one.
Doing their Obi-Wan. And then the NPCs were attacking from below. But yeah, it was sort of like a really good long 3 or 4 solid fights as the engineers were trying to sort the bomb out. Yeah, it was a good mission, definitely. Okay, so moving on to Stricken then. So I'm going to hand over to, I think Chris is going to talk about the background first of all, and then Dave will pick up with the slides on a bit more detail about the class.
Okay, yeah. So the Stricken, we always knew from the start that there were going to be local tribes in the area for all the player characters to be interacting with. Going into event 2, that was our chance to more fully flesh out the tribes, flesh out their society and everything like that. The different tribes, what they're up to, what they're even down to the level of what their political relationships with each other are. So I was able to go through, already had the idea for what they were in mind, and in the run up to event 2, I did flesh out the tribes. So got the names of them, a little brief bit of background, how they joined the Free People, their sort of opinions of the other tribes and of Rays and everything. The idea being just to get some very basics in place for us to use, and that can be developed on and worked on and improved upon later as plot and other things demand. So do you want me to actually go through the Free People themselves?
If you could have a run through the tribes, mate, and then we'll talk about the sort of the 3 classes that layer into the tribes.
Yeah, cool. So the Free People are made up of now near enough 11 tribes, but originally at the point they were made up of 12. And after the events unfolded of the second event, where one of the tribes, through external means, was trying to turn against their great warlord, essentially they're all but done now. So I started off in designing them. There is the Great Warlord, the Arch Warlord, the Chief Warlord. He's got numerous titles. His name is Rays. He's the guy in charge. If he were a D&D character, his alignment would definitely be lawful evil. He does great things in nasty ways. He more than appreciates at the time, quite frankly, someone just needs to die in order to make things run better in other ways. But there's plenty more to discover in that regard. In turn, developed a system whereby he has his own council. So he's got 4 different people advising him in different ways about different things that help inform him. He's not necessarily too prideful. He's happy to take advice and learn from people who know more than him, which has led to some interesting negotiations between him, the Free People, and the bunker. So the tribes themselves, as mentioned, there's 12 tribes. So going through them, first of all, there's the Wolfkin. That's Razor's own tribe. And in the background, tried to sum up our tribe in a few words, essentially, to be expanded upon later. The Wolfkin are which is Razor's tribe, are the largest tribe. Out of everyone you're going to meet, near enough most encounters, unless you're further afield, are going to involve some wolfkin, because they are the largest tribe that make them up. They're all relatively good warriors, plenty of depth to expand them, being Razor's own tribe and the like. The next idea I had was for a tribe called the Warmongers. So these are much smaller in scope, but these are your hardcore warriors. These are the toughest hombres in the Free People. They're led by a chieftain who is one of Razor's advisors, and as I say, they're really tough hombres. They're used as bodyguards and the like, and that's tried to be conveyed in encounters and the like that we've tried to introduce both out in the field and at the main camp themselves. There's also then the forest rates, so the arbitrary super scouts. That's what they bring to bear for the Free People. Just on that note, I tried to just give a thing. Whilst I'm not totally typecasting the whole tribe as being this one thing, I've tried to put together this one thing that's the main thing the tribe contributes. And with the forest rates, they're fantastic scouts and game hunters. And again, their chieftain is one of Razor's advisors. After that, there's the Shale. These are the more technologically minded tribe of the Free People. Their leader, their chieftain is quite well learned. There's been a few encounters where he's been met, and the engineers of the bunker have helped him out with various bits. So that brings us on to just going down my list, the Blessed Crows, who are now known as the Dead Crows. So in event 2, this was the tribe that tried to turn rebel, and as the name change suggests, it didn't go well for them. Essentially, after they were put down by the players, their rebellion, essentially they were all but annihilated because, as I mentioned, Razor's lawful evil. And he's not going to stand for any naysayers against that. So the ones that you're going to find about them, more or less, are either going to be enslaved by other tribes or have gone fully rogue and are fleeing for their lives, basically. But in the mainstay, that is now a dead tribe. After that, there's the Risen. These are the medicine men. Now, not much has been done with them really yet. They've not been called on in any particular story element. I've tried to introduce them through various encounters and little bits here and there, but there's always more scope for their introduction.
They're like the herbalists and things like that, aren't they, sort of thing?
Exactly. So yeah. all the crazy surface medicines and unguents and unpleasant things you stick in wounds to make them better. You know, these have got all the healing know-how. And I've got on that specific note, I've got some encounters planned going forward to introduce a greater variety of what they can actually do. Politically as well, they were nearly rebel. So through the actions of the players in the bunker and everything that happened, they've been brought back in line. But it was set up so that potentially, if the rebellion by the Blessed Crows wasn't dealt with, then others would have joined in with them. But yeah, the players definitely dealt with that. Next is the Dead Stars. These are one of the main water providers. They've got access to like underground water reserves and the like. Again, this is not a plan that has been particularly fleshed out yet. They just have in the story and the plot that's been unfolding. From what I've had planned, there hasn't been any real need to flesh them out or introduce them more than just in passing. After that, there's the Burnt Ghosts. These are the traders. So 9 times out of 10, if you meet a wandering scrap trader from the tribes or anything like that, they're going to be from this tribe. Garish dress, jovial attitude, minted. all the things that go along with actually being the traders of the free people. Plenty introduced with them already, and plenty more planned. After that, we've got the Winterborn tribe. These are your scavengers. So obviously all the tribes and all the surface dwellers are going to be scavengers. But these are the ones that set off on like month-long treks to the ancient ruins of the cities that were and the like. These are the ones that go out and find the proper archaeotech bits and bobs. They're a widely dispersed tribe, always hunting for gubbins to bring back and to trade. Got plenty planned with them. A few have already been introduced in appropriate encounters, but again, as with the rest, there's plenty of room for further story enhancement. After that, we've got the Ash Horde. Essentially, these haven't been too much fleshed out. They were generically made to be the third largest tribe. So again, numbers were like one of the most significant things they could bring to bear for the free people. But they're also excellent woodworkers. Seems like a nice thing to bring for them. But they can be developed far more than that. And again, this is another tribe that not much has the players haven't had much to do with as of yet. So the next one is the Helleye clan. This is one I do particularly quite like, even though not much has been done with them as of yet. The Helleye clan are all horrible, degenerate mutants. Everyone you meet on the surface is going to be a minor mutant at some point. But these are the ones that are your Ephialtes from 300 level of mutant. Clawed hands, horrible humpbacks, horrible radiation, pockmarks and scars and all sorts. These are the ones that, essentially, the idea behind them is Rays has allowed the mutants to live. You can imagine it being the average thing. When a child is born, they're assessed for how deviant they are, and if they're too bad, they're left to die. Just like at the start of 300, essentially. Definitely drew some inspiration there. But Rays has allowed them to live in exchange for working for him. So essentially, he's created a tribe of super loyal, horrible uber mutants to work for him. It was great. It's been great fun actually developing them. They've been mentioned in background and in military deployments and the like, but they actually met one of the clansmen for the first time last event. Sorry, and that was one. That was another one I had great fun making the Physreps for. He had a horrible mutated, like 3-fingered clawed hand and a horrible big hunchback as well. So it was good fun to make the costumes for them. And again, there's plenty more that can be worked on with them. The last lot are the Pale Bone Warriors. These are like your miners. These have got access to both metals and fuel still in some old decrepit mines from before the fall of civilization. These are another one that I've not fleshed out terribly well as of yet. But again, there's more. There's plenty that can be done with them in the unfolding plot going forwards.
I think it's fair to say that obviously we're here to talk about people playing Stricken as well, and if players choose one of these classes that haven't been really encountered yet or whatever, there's an opportunity there to develop that clan with Chris and get more information from Chris and maybe even flesh some of it out with him because it is an interactive LARP that we're working on. Everybody's there to contribute to make the game better for everybody. So yeah, it's definitely something I would imagine Chris will be really keen to do.
Absolutely. If anyone wants to play a Stricken from one of these tribes and wants to develop the story behind them more and everything like that, I am totally keen to have people's input on that, and we'll see what we can come up with. But yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of scope when playing a Stricken, not only with your class but also your tribal background and the effect that will have on your role play experience. There's plenty to choose from, and always happy to develop it further with people's help.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. So I'll hand over to Dave, and he's going to go through a bit about the classes and a bit more information about the differences of playing a stricken to a normal bunker inhabitant. So over to you, Dave.
Yeah, so Chris did the lion's share of the work on creating the concept and the original ideas behind the clans, and then once the players had interacted with a whole bunch of them, and the GM team and Lee decided that now was the time to bring those in as a player option to allow characters to play them, it then fell to the rules team to come up with ways to develop that essentially. So there are a couple of key differences between playing a bunker agent and playing a stricken. So obviously the bunker is already established. That's the majority of the player base, and they have access to all the technology. So they have access to modern or futuristic guns. They have access to pads. They have computer skills. They have nanite technology. All of the cool things that are breaking down and slowly stopping working is what the bunker guys have access to. And obviously, as you've seen from a few of the bits, we've talked about the QR code system, which is all driven by pads. So you will not have access to that system as a starting stricken character. It's something that can be developed, and you can learn skills, and you can build relationships with people in the bunker to gain access to the equipment and training that will allow you to do that eventually. But as a starting character, you won't have access to that type of information. There are some possible challenges with playing a new stricken character. Obviously, the opportunity is you are blazing the trail. You are the first people to take this character class and bring it into the game full time. However, as Lee's kind of mentioned, not everyone within the bunker is happy with the relationships with the clans, and not everyone has had positive interactions, and not everyone believes that we should be helping them as much as we have done. So there will be times when you, as a character, might feel that you're being excluded from information or being excluded from access to something, and that won't be a slight on you as an out of character person, but some of the player characters might want to restrict access to things you get hold of. So they might not want you to have access to bomb making technology, or allow you to just hang out inside one of the bunker dedicated outposts without a chaperone, or those kind of things. They will still, because other than the fact that we've had some bad interactions directly with the stricken on the surface, as Chris pointed out, Raze is pretty mean and has exacted a pricey toll for a lot of the help that he's been providing to the bunker inhabitants. Not always. He's quite opportunistic, Raze, in my opinion. I've met him a couple of times, and when we've gone to him cap in hand, he knows he's got us over a barrel and continues to leverage that. Now things are becoming a bit more even, and we've proven our worth to him. It's not so bad, but still leaves a sour taste in some of the players' mouths, especially when we refer to the rabbit incident. So yeah, it will be challenging. You might come into some good-natured conflict with other player characters as the kind of the stricken character class comes into its own. Couple of key system-based differences. So you won't be able to utilize bunker ammo boxes to fill up your guns. They are a different type of technology, although the fizz reps are the same. You will essentially be utilizing old technology that is not compatible with the nanite stuff. Again, as the game progresses and you gain friends and allies within the bunker, there is options for you to be taught and trained and gain access to those weapons, but you won't have access to start with. But there's not all downsides. So the world on the surface is highly irradiated. There are very few places where you are guaranteed not to be irradiated whilst you're on the surface. Some areas are constantly irradiated from either toxic waste, or it was potentially the strike of a nuclear weapon or a broken power plant of some description. Those areas are radioactive all the time, but there's storms that blow around all over the place on the surface, and you never know when those are going to show up. But all of the general, unless you're going digging around in a toxic waste dump or stick your face into a reactor Generally speaking, the stricken are all right to cope with most of the general radiation found on the surface. Yeah, I kind of covered off most of that. So no access to pads, no starting access to radios. But on the side note, when you are out and about in the field, if you like, on mission or going places, you are far more likely to encounter friendly tribes people than you are friendly people from the bunker, because we don't go out. So when you're out and about and things go south on a mission, it's a lot easier to get support from nearing tribes people than it is to get support from the bunker. So that's always a bonus point. And it's a completely different experience. All the bunker inhabitants lived inside this big metal box for 500 years, right? Most of the characters had never even seen the outside. So a lot of people tend to kind of build that into their roleplay experience, like going up and looking at the sky for the first time and seeing stars and the moon and all of this kind of stuff. That has a massive impact on bunker player, character play. But it's the other way around for Stricken. They're used to all of that stuff. What they're not used to is, seeing people with guns that shoot, like the way that the bunker weapon technologies work, and just being able to, put some nanite infused material onto someone and watch their wounds heal. Like all of that's completely alien to a Stricken. So there's an element of, that they would perceive some of the bunker technology as magic, potentially, depending on how much interaction they've had. So yeah, there's a lot of scope for really interesting stuff. So building a character, I'm just going to run through it quickly because it is slightly different, and then I'll cover quickly off the various classes. So essentially, when you're making a stricken character, you'll see all this in the player's guide, but you're kind of picking, whereas if you're an FEF operative, you pick your class, you pick the thing that you've trained to do. But with the stricken, as Chris has kind of indicated, you get to pick two things. You pick your tribe, which is, if those of you are fantasy RP veterans, your tribe is essentially your race, and determines, the general look of how you will behave. And also it impacts some of the skills and some of the mutations are clan specific. So not only does it affect your general appearance and kind of outlook on the world and the other clans, but it can also have an effect on skills that you do or do not have access to. Then you pick your focus, which is essentially the class part of it. What skills have you developed as part of being a Stricken? And there are 3, and we'll go on to those in a minute. The other thing you pick as a starting character is whether or not you want a severe mutation. So if you just want to have like a few radiation marks or some skin discoloration or webbed fingers or, something that's just a prosthetic that doesn't have any in-game effect, but just reflects the fact that you are not you have suffered from radiation over a protracted period of time, then you can. But there are some more distinct mutations that you can have that impact your character. And they all have a positive and negative, some worse than others, and some are tribe specific, whether that's because of the way that tribe behaves, where that tribe lives, that kind of stuff. So something to bear in mind when you are looking at that. But they all have, crucially, quite a strict phys rep requirement. So this is the only part of it. So when Chris talked about the personality of the tribes and how each one looks, so if you remember the mining tribe or the construction tribe, they're often seen with kind of like old kind of construction clothes. So you might have like a Bob the Builder helmet and a leather tool belt, or each one has their own kind of look. Doesn't necessarily say you have to use all of those things, but that's the general feel. Mutations are quite, it must be obvious what your mutation is. But again, loads of scope, like crazy stuff. You want to have a hunchback, you want to stick a second head on, or there's tons of options for stuff you can do for mutations. So that's the other thing you do at the starting thing. So then, what else? The other two key difference really for me is you don't get starting cash as a stricken character. unlike the bunker people who you have an amount of credits to spend to buy guns, armor, pad, nanites, whatever it is you want to buy, the Stricken essentially have a fixed set of equipment choices, and it will depend on which character class or which focus you pick will determine how many you get to pick from and which tables you use, as shown by Lee helpfully in that table. The Stricken are more kind of archaic weapons and survival focused, more so than the FEF, who are gun-toting maniacs. You are more likely to have melee combat skills and skills that increase your capacity to damage than you are to have highly accurate trained weapons fire. And weapons are a relatively rare thing within the tribes from a gun point of view. So gun skills do cost them more in character points than they would for an FEF operative, but you get access to a wider range of skills. So there are three, unlike the bunker, there are three main focuses which kind of group up all of the various skills. So the first one, warrior, pretty obvious. For those of you that don't know, that's Chris, designer of the Stricken. And this basically, warriors are exactly what you'd expect them to have access to. So they have access to heavier armor skills, they can gain more hit points and that kind of stuff. They get the key skill, which is one of the more underrated skills, which is called relentless, which allows you to move towards someone who's shooting at you, which is a very rare skill and has a distinct, it causes a massive shift in a combat scenario when people have access to that skill. And again, they gain access to various different melee-based skills. Their gun skills are all about kind of like Lee said, so it's less about accuracy and more about carrying more ammo and throwing that ammo faster at your opponent. Generally, the gun skills that you will see a warrior of the Stricken have access to. So the next one is the speaker. So the speaker covers a few different ones. Obviously, it covers diplomat, ambassador, and trader, but also you could view them as kind of like an explorer, because they have their kind of skills are around meeting people, dealing with the world itself, kind of knowing who to say, knowing who to talk to within a clan, or who not to talk to, or how to talk to them. All of those kind of skills are what the Stricken speakers do. So they've got a whole bunch of things, and I'm not going to go through them because they're quite in depth, but essentially you can become allied or have relationships with specific groups, and then when you encounter those, their reactions are more favorable towards you. You can learn about the surface area, you can get information between missions about the surround, like if you want to know, oh, we haven't explored those 5 squares on our map, what's there? Then there might be an opportunity for that to happen. They're also, if you are Shale tribe, they're one of the few people who can get access to the skill to use a pad without having to go and suck up to the douchebags in the bunker, basically. They can learn it themselves. Next class would be the Shaper. So the Shaper is doctor, technician, engineer, construction worker, carpenter, alchemist. The list is endless, really. These are the guys that make and maintain things and people on the surface for the Stricken tribes. As Chris mentioned about the crazy unguents and wraps and injections and potions that can be created, these guys are basically that. So they can mix and create and make things live out in the field to allow them to create temporary or permanent healing effects. So they're able to remove toxins and they're able to temporarily heal people. And the list is kind of it's similar to what the medical profession within the bunker can do, but it's much more flexible. They don't have access to any of this, to the nanite boxes, the healing stations, if you like. But from a surviving on the surface point of view, these guys are pretty damn handy.
The biggest problem you've got with a Shaper healer compared to a bunker healer is that the tribes cannot heal gunshot wounds. They can stop you dying from it, but they cannot heal it. They just cannot do it. It's like real life. If you get shot, you're talking weeks,
Days.
months of recovery. And it's only nanite technology that allows that quick healing from firearms wounds. So that's one of the really key differences. But otherwise, a lot of the stuff to do with toxins and that kind of thing, they have ways of doing it themselves, similar to the bunker, but obviously taken from the earth rather than technology based. But yeah, the inability to heal firearms wounds is basically one of the reasons why the bunker is able to be so dominant against the tribes with such lower numbers. It's just a massive technological edge,
and not just our bunker either.
Yeah, any bunker, yeah.
So the other reason why there is not a huge amount of trust between some people is that Bunker Fortitude, one of the current antagonists, they have allies within their local stricken population. And by allies, I mean they've essentially enslaved them all and put bomb collars on them and forced them to fight the enemies of the bunker. So they use them as shock ablative armor.
Allies should definitely be in air quotes there.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. But they've also they have done things where they've deliberately injured members of a tribe and then strapped bombs to them and sent them to bunker ascendant places to get healed and also blow up. So yeah, that's another reason why some people are not necessarily mad keen on it. So as you can see from here, so for example, here you go, Paintball Warriors. The kit recommendations on here are by no means you have to wear and do all of these things. We didn't want to be as strict. We kind of wanted people to have the same flexibility as if they were playing an FEF member. All we would say is that if you're from a tribe, you should look like you're from that tribe. How you choose to do that is entirely up to you, but someone should be able to look at you and go, looking at obviously some like a GM, not necessarily a player, because not all the players know even about all of the clans. So they should be able to go, oh yeah, you're probably either a Pale Bone Warrior or you may be Shale. There could be, because a few of them do overlap a little, but it should be obvious what group of clans that you are from.
And an easy way, one of the strongest ways to do that is obviously display a sash or a scroll with the symbol on.
Or a tattoo, or a massive 6-foot banner.
Yeah.
I mean, how you do it's up to you.
Yeah, definitely.
If I play a Stricken, I'm having a massive back banner, like Japanese samurai style.
I fully support a back banner.
Absolutely horrendously useless for doing anything other than walking around with. Probably can't even get into an outpost, to be honest. But either way, it'll look cool. So, with that in mind then, I've pretty much covered off all the stuff I wanted to do about how it translates game-wise. Does anyone have any questions?
I think one of the things that's key for me is it's quite a big shift for us as GMs to bring Stricken in. It was always planned, definitely from myself, when I started looking at this. But what you've essentially got is an entirely new group with some very different ways of operating and different outlooks. So people that do play Stricken, I think it's one of those that work with us, and we will work with you to give you the best possible experience. And it'll be, as the rest of the game has been, it'll be a journey together, and hopefully a very positive one. So yeah. Okay. Very quiet on the guest front.
I was going to ask, how do they reload then if they can't use the ammo boxes?
So all the weapons that the FEF have like standard 5 clips in them that can be modified, and that's representing the amount of energy they've got in them to convert the bullets to matter as they're fired, and then that's recharged by the ammo box of the nanites. Because the Stricken are using standard ammo, they start with so many clips in the gun that number will usually be quite a bit higher because of the extra clips that you buy before an event, and also you can have skills which up your clips as well. But once those clips are gone, they're gone until you can replenish your supply of ammo somehow. Now, it's so you can't. You need to avoid getting hit by the ammo box because the technology will still allow your gun to take the ammo. We can't physically stop that, but you need to make sure as a player you don't avail yourself of the use of the ammo box. But basically, the way to do it is you'll interact with, you'll have tons of clips, or you'll interact with other members of your clan when you return from a mission, and they will sort you out a new ammo supply because you are trading all the time. Because you're doing missions for that should be helping the clan as well as the bunker. When you return from a mission, there should be traders around that will help you get your ammo back, and you won't necessarily have to give them anything to get that ammo. They will help you because you are helping the tribes, and it'll be an edict from the council and from Rays that the warriors are helped to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish for Rays and for the council. So yeah.
Because the other thing that happens is if you turn your gun off overnight, it comes back on with full ammo, doesn't it?
Yeah, and again that'll be reflected. That'll be reflected through the support from the clans, basically.
Fair enough.
Like I say, it's like I was saying before. There's a few little things where we just have to work through it and see how it goes. And what we won't do is allow the players of the new stricken players to have a negative experience because of any of these rules. If it's not working, we'll come up with something to solve the problem for them for that event, and then we'll look at it going forward. So yeah, there's a couple of things like that where it's we've got a plan, but we'll see how it goes.
So we do have someone who I think is playing Stricken. Jason, have you got any questions, or is that all as clear as mud for you? Cool.
Yep, obviously fine. Or can't get his mute button off, one of the two.
Excellent. No, that's fine. That's all good.
Yeah. To be fair, I wasn't expecting a ton of questions because I think it's one of them people need to see them out in the field and play them out in the field, don't they, to see how it goes.
Yeah.
I think what we'll do is once we've had the next event, I think we'll get a session together. Anybody can attend, but I would hope it'd be obviously the stricken players, and we'll have a bit of a chat like this, a bit of an open forum, and just see what worked well, what didn't work so well, and what we need to do to make them, make them, if there is any issues with playability or fun or anything like that, just look at what we can do to sort that out. So yeah, it's.
I was going to say, is there an option that leveling up after a mission or two of them becoming civilized and becoming like joining an FEF career, or are they always stricken?
My philosophy on anything like that, Alex, is never say never.
Right.
If that's something that the players in general or an individual player wants, I would never say never. Yeah. So just as much as like Dave alluded to, we're learning how to use bunker weapons and getting access to bunker weapons and stuff. That will all have to be accomplished through the players through role play on the surface. It's not just by the numbers or by a skill type thing, because that's just another element of the story advancing, and whether it goes that way or whether it pushes another way, whether they end up back at war again, you know what I mean? And you end up with some stricken players that say, "Oh, I'm going to throw a lot in with the bunker." We're not driving that agenda as such. We'll always put in elements that affect that agenda, but it's always up to the players and how that resolves.
Yeah, we've got having spoken to the rules team about it a few times, that we've got a few ideas about how that might play out, where it wouldn't make them just straight up better to be a stricken and then learn a bit of engineering on the side. That it can't be the case where they're just an automatically better choice. But there isn't to say, much like when we went onto the surface and we met Razor's clan, and then all of a sudden people gained access to the melee and archaic weapons training, which wasn't available before, and FEF members were able to go and spend some time with the tribes and learn how to smack a man with a bat.
Waste their points on those skills, you mean?
I mean, for anyone other than assault class, it probably is just flavour rather than utility. But yeah. And as we have no assault class soldiers, yeah.
Hook's got relentless now, so just to let you know.
Oh my god.
Of course he has. Of course he has. He's an animal.
All hail King Hook.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Crazy man. As if you don't run at people.
He does now.
Apparently he does now, yeah. Sure.
I used to, before the rules changed.
It's now an option.
He's got even more ways to do his fancy sort of guises for the camera than are, hasn't he? Like holding the gun and the knife and things. And yeah.
I've taken the Peter Parker pre-set up cameras as well, so that I can get my Spider-Man shots.
Nice. Does anyone else have any other questions, not necessarily related to Stricken?
Yeah, anything at all. That's all good. We must be doing something right.
Oh, we've bored them all to death. One or the other.
One of the two.
Let's hope for option 2, but prepare. Let's hope for option 1, but prepare for option 2.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got for the next one I've got a fun document to show people relating to the how we came up with the witch encounter and stuff. So given how well that went across, I think people will enjoy seeing
I might be busy. When is it?
2 weeks time.
Nightmare.
That witch encounter, I've never enjoyed seeing 6 adults shit themselves so much. That was just glorious.
So just to let you know, the 2 weeks time is the bank holiday Sunday, so I don't know if that changes your schedule or not.
Right.
You might want to push it out to 3 weeks.
Or maybe just bring it forward a week, because to get back on track, because we pushed this one back a week, didn't we?
Yeah, could do.
Yeah, so let's do that then. Let's do that. We'll do that one next week.
Yeah.
No, excellent.
Yeah, I'm busy now.
Yeah. Okay. Down. Right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. That's we're just coming up on an hour as well, so that's absolutely perfect.
Lastly, then before we sign off, for anyone who's watching this afterwards and wants to talk about Stricken characters, if it's general kind of clan based background history, that kind of stuff, speak to Chris. If you want to talk rules wise, then probably me or Jen would be, who's unfortunately not here today, but me or Jen would probably be your best starting point. And then I guess if either of those groups of people need to bring Lee into the conversation, then we can do.
Sound spot on. Thank you very much, all. Catch you all later.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
See you guys.